I wanted so much for this book to just blow me away. And maybe because I'm a little bit biased because of the title of the book, but I wanted so much from it. So much. Hi guys, it's April, and I'm gonna do this review the same way I do all of my other reviews. I'm gonna have the non-spoiler section up front, followed by the spoiled filled dump afterwards, in case you don't want to spoil yourself. But of course, feel free to watch for however long you would like to. I'm just glad you're here. I will note that I did receive an art copy of Goblin King by Barbieri for a free and honest review, but that in no way has swayed my opinion on this book. And it is also the second book in the Permafrost series, so there will be spoilers for White Stag. So if you haven't read White Stag, I recommend that you go and do that, and then come back and see if you want to read the next book. So book 2 of the Permafrost series, Goblin King, starts off a little while after Janiki has become the White Stag and Soren has become the Elk King. In her role of being the White Stag, Janiki has started to have visions, and it seems that Laodin is not as gone as they had hoped he would be, but she starts to have feelings and connections and thoughts about the fact that the world might be ending. Now, this was hinted at in White Stag when Laodin was constantly talking about what happens when the snake stops eating itself. But Janiki, who is new to her powers, has to figure out how to stop the world from ending. So she and Soren, a couple of old characters and new characters, go on this quest to stop Ragnarok. As you can tell just by mentioning Ragnarok, there's a lot of Norse mythology woven into this tale. This is more of a journey quest than the previous book was. You have a lot of traveling around. You have an ensemble of characters who are just trying to keep the world from ending. Some of my issues start with the fact that we do have this ensemble. Apparently between when the first book ended and when this book picked up, Janiki has created a couple of friendship bonds that you never really get a full feel of. A lot of this book was more telling than showing, and that kind of lost a lot of the character depth for me. It was also very interestingly paced. I found myself bored a lot of the time. I wanted to like this book so much because Goblin King and the fact that I had just come off of White Stag and I really truly enjoyed White Stag. But this book, I lost the characters that I really enjoyed. A lot of the characters felt like they had changed somehow. They didn't feel quite as developed or refined or the same as they did in the first book. Laodin is the biggest example of this because Laodin is a character that was the perfect villain and you just hated him. He was crazy and all that kind of stuff. But then in this book, you lose a lot of those harsh edges and it doesn't feel right. And then the fact that we're supposed to feel a connection with all of these new characters that both Soren and Janiki had developed over the time frame that we hadn't been, you don't feel it. And so you have this ensemble, and then you have all of these quests. You have this Nordic lore that is forming their path, and at some point I started to lose interest because it was just a lot of talking. I mean, a lot. And this sometimes happens when, you know, couples have come together and we're trying to figure out more story arc, and it's a little bit about the kerfuffle of this relationship and learning to trust each other, which these guys clearly do not because they kept on holding secrets from each other. And then trying to have an underlying strong plot. I didn't care about the relationship. And then at some point, I didn't care if the world ended or not, which I'm a little saddened about. I mean, there are a lot of good bones to this story, and it does round out nicely. It just felt flatter than the first book, and I just wanted something a little deeper from it that I didn't get. So do I recommend this book? I guess if you want. I think I would have been perfectly content to just have stopped at White Stag and let them live out the rest of their lives maybe having this underlying threat happen, because there is still another underlying threat at the end of this book that I don't think we're getting more in this series, but it's there if more books come. So take that as you will. Tell me down below if you think you're gonna pick up the next book, or if any of this review made any sense, but this is the point in which I am going to switch into more of the spoils. So if you don't want to spoil yourself, this is the time in which you can leave and then maybe later come back when you're ready. I did get a lot of my thoughts out in the non-spoiler section for as non-spoilery as I could get. It's just my biggest issue was the dynamic of the ensemble of characters that went on this journey to stop Ragnarok. And there were supposed twists, like Rose being the son of Laodin, that okay, cool, fine, I guess, but I didn't like or know Rose well enough. I mean, he had these cute, quirky moments that I liked, but he wasn't a big enough character for me yet for that supposed betrayal of knowledge to like really hurt or anything like that. And the fact that a good chunk of things going on inside of Janiki's head was all centered around not feeling adequate and this relationship with Soren, that I felt like we were back at the beginning of book 1, but in a relationship. And it's just, it kind of started getting a little grating at times, because the whole book, I guess, was apparently all about just tearing down everybody's ability to have any kind of strength and believe in themselves. And yet somehow we still won in the end. And I get it. We're trying to build up this anxiety in this plot. It's just, it didn't capture me in the way I wanted it to. It felt like any other YA journey story, and I just wasn't really excited about it. So those are my thoughts on Goblin King, a book I really, really wanted to love. Tell me down below what your thoughts are on this book. And of course, if you want to see more content like this, subscribe down below, and I heart you beautiful faces. Bye.